Sound test. Another sound test. Okay, we're good. Alright. Hello everyone. I need to mute. Okay. So welcome everyone to stream number 14. So today, today it's just again me doing my usual stuff with Tatoeba, and I'll be also talking about a couple of topics that I haven't really addressed yet during the streams, or maybe a little bit, but not so much. One being mass import of sentences, and the other one being licensing issues, so issues with copyright and stuff like that. But let's start with our usual stuff. So, okay, so maybe before we start, one thing that I'll try to keep for every stream is to give a chance for people to ask questions and to interact a little bit more. So far we've only had the YouTube chat, but in case anybody doesn't have a YouTube account or doesn't wish to use the YouTube chat, there are other ways. So the first way is to join the Tatoeba chat room. So for this one, you don't need to create an account. You can just go to chat.tatoeba.org. So normally you should see also like up there the URL. I mean the link to the chat, but you can also find it from the website. So it's a little bit hidden, but you can find us from the contact us page, and there is a link over here where if you click on it, it basically goes to chat.tatoeba.org, and from there you don't really need to register. You can just enter a username and you are in. So yeah, you can also see some of the past conversations. But in case anybody watching at the moment wants to ask questions, so I'll have this open, and if you ask any questions, I can check over there as well. And so this will be on the side for now. Yeah, so let's just start with the usual. Today is Sunday, and like many Sundays, we usually deploy during that day. So we can have a look at what's going to be deployed. So I mentioned, this is something I'll mention, I guess, during every streams, like what's going to be updated in Tatoeba and what's going to come next. We don't have a huge amount of activity at the moment. Still better than the few months before where there was really not so much going on. But yeah, in general, if you want to know what's going to be new in Tatoeba in the website itself, like what changes are being made, you can go to the GitHub repository of Tatoeba. So once again, this is also a link that you can access from the footer of the page. So there's this link here in the developer section to GitHub, and then it will go to the GitHub repository where we manage the source code. And in the GitHub repository, you can find the milestones. So going from, if you look at all the issues, you'll have over here the milestones, and you can have a look at all the past milestones, which will tell you what has been deployed on the main website previously. And you can look at the current milestone or the next one, which is what is going to be deployed. So basically what we have for today deployment, the first one is, yeah, I've gone through that in the last stream. The first one is just a minor fix for when the random sentences are refreshed. The second change is that we're going to have a new language. And the third one is also a fix which I don't think will be really noticeable to many people, but so initially it solves the problem that when somebody tries to delete their profile pictures, it shows that they are a former member, which doesn't really make sense. But it also fixes many other things. I mean, not many, but an important other thing in the background. But yeah, nothing that really impacts user experience. So, and the last thing, actually, I have to go back to the milestone. The last thing is this one that is not closed yet, but there was some changes that kind of impacted some pages that they wouldn't display anymore, pages that display sentences and translations. So in this case here, I don't know if we have a specific URL. So search for any word. Okay, here, thanks, from English to any language. Okay, and yeah, and this is an error that only happens with a specific settings. So in this case, if you, unlike me, if you have, if you're not using the new design. So in my case, if I search right now, because I'm using the new design of the sentence, it works. But if I'm changing over here and I try again, I think you had to choose English. Yes, okay. I think it's there has been some changes made with something that overloads the CPU a little bit, and it cannot render the page. So as you can see, it's still loading, and I think we end up after probably 30 seconds or so with an internal error. So apparently Gilux here has detected that it was caused by a specific commit, and this is just a revert of the commit. So in this case as well, no new feature, but it fixes, like if you've ever tried to load a page and you've seen this internal error has occurred, maybe reverting this commit here will fix this error. So just setting back my configuration here. Right. So, okay. So let's go ahead. I'll just go ahead with the deployment. So deployment, I'll go through these steps over here. Right. So I already, yeah, actually I don't need to have my VM running, but I already have it running for later. Well, actually I do need, because for pulling the translations I need to SSH to the VM and update translations. So actually, while this is pulling, I'm also going to update. No, first. Let's see if I can test on the dev website this error. So if I go to my profile and I try to remove, right? So I try to remove my profile picture. Ideally, it should have displayed this default avatar over here, but instead it displays former member. So that's the bug. That's the bug. One of the changes is trying to fix. So I'll just put back my profile picture. And we'll try again right now. So I'm going to update. So this is the dev website, so just a test environment basically. I'm going just right now to connect to the dev server and make it up to date. Okay, so yeah, I just run a bunch of commands right now to update the dev server. So let's refresh and do the same. I should wait. I need to refresh the PHP cache as well. Yeah, I think that should be enough. Okay, so now we edit, we remove, and here things are displayed properly. So that looks all right. Yeah. Just checking that the logout and login works. Still, yeah. And just gonna try to pull stuff. Okay. So some basic features working. So in the meantime, we've had this command here that finished. Okay. So we have normally a bunch of new files, which we're gonna commit. So here just checking quickly if there's nothing wrong in the translations. Like not in terms of if there's anything wrongly translated, but if there's any bad characters or inserts of snippets of codes or stuff like that. So that looks good. So okay, actually before we push, since we have a new language, something I haven't done but I should have done. I mean, ideally, this is something that we try to do a few days before the deployment, but in this case, I tend to forget, to be honest, and I didn't think to do it. But it's okay. It's just about making the new, so whenever there's a new language, there's a new string in the UI that needs to be translated. So we need to extract it. So back to the VM. Generate. So here are basically it extracts and updates the pod file. So this is like the source file for all the strings that are in the UI, and this is basically from the strings listed in those files that we have the translations. So this as well. we should make a commit. I'll just keep the same commit message as what we used to. Okay, update pod files. So okay. So we have our two commits here, and we can push. Oh, I forgot to git pull. I don't like when it does that. Yeah, okay. I think it's not too bad. Should have done a rebase, I think, but okay. So we have those here. So yeah, the fact that we have the updated pod files over here, there's going to be some automatic scanning of the pod files in here. So some of those files over here will be scanned automatically by another platform called Transifex, and over there is where we actually have the UI to translate our UI. So that will be available, I guess, in a few hours on Transifex, but that means the new language right now, when we're going to deploy, it's not going to have translations. So like if you change the UI into another language than English, the new language itself will be written in English still until we have the translations from Transifex. But that's okay. Like the plan anyway is to have another update next week, so I think we should be fine. Back to the deployment. Yeah, I should just paste what I'm copying. Git merge dev. Here we had the tag, so 2022-04-17. And we push. Okay. And now I'm going to deploy on the production server. So yeah, normally it's already on master, but just to make sure. Then we have the latest codes, and we create the folder for with the latest changes. And we change the folder and we reload the cache. Okay, so with that, so that part is done, but we also have a new language. So this one here will have okay, let me just find the correct list here. So IGS, and the list ID is 170120. And I think this should take 2 minutes or so to be added. And after that, we will also have to create the indexes. Yeah, so while this is running, I think I'm gonna get some water actually. Oh, okay, that one went a bit faster than before. Um, okay, last time was 1 minute, okay. So somehow this one is a bit faster. Maybe because there are less sentences. Okay. So we just check that the list over here, yeah, it has been marked with the new language, and we just have now to create the indexes. So IGS. Okay, we have stuff that looks okay. We can actually also just try to search. To search this one here. And we find it, so that's good. Right, so the next thing, now we can check in production if reverting this other commit works. So yeah, basically searching thanks from English. Yeah, I need to actually change. Yeah, should have left it. So thanks from English to any language. Yeah, and now it shows up. Okay, so this one shows up, and I think there was another one. So let's check. This one shows up. Yeah, we'll check the other one. The other one shows up. Okay. So I think those we can close. And the other thing to try out was yeah, just that deleting the profile picture behaves properly, and it does. Okay, so all good. Yeah, and the last one we can check is the random sentence. Actually, let's look out from over here. We're gonna find some Japanese sentence. Okay, we have this thing over here, and if we switch to English, it disappears. Okay, so that's the expected behavior, so everything's good. Okay, so that was for today's update. The main thing that will be significant, I guess, is the new language. For the rest, there shouldn't be too many changes in the usual behavior of the website. For the next one, so I think we are slowly but surely completing step by step all the pending pull requests. So I think for next week we're gonna have these two that are fairly safe to add. Can I create a new milestone from here? No. Okay. So we're gonna put that, yeah, we can plan that for the 24. Okay. Yeah, so for next the next Tatoeba update, the first one is, yeah, this one has been around for a while, but basically, again, if you are not really up to date, so we have removed Google Analytics from Tatoeba, so Tatoeba doesn't use Google Analytics anymore to have stats about who's visiting Tatoeba. But because of this removal, we also need to update the terms of use, which currently still mention Google Analytics. So yeah, removing this part here, but basically removing content from the terms of use according to our own terms of use requires that we inform the users, and we do have a mechanism for that, but yeah, this pull request basically takes care of that. I actually didn't, I don't think I tested it yet locally, so let's do that right now. Let's close these ones here. And over here, that should be up to date. Yes. Okay, so we switch to this one. So in this one, yeah, based on that, if I log in, I should see normally, okay, I should see the banner. So that's the main thing. Just a banner will pop up for you guys in the next Tatoeba updates, because there is this very small change in the terms of use. But yeah, this is also the foundation for when we have more significant future updates, if ever we ever have future updates of the terms of use. We have some mechanism there for that. And the next one, so the other change is also not a change that's really going to be visible on a day-to-day basis, but if there is ever some controversial, or not controversial, but yeah, some threads, comments that are derailing a little bit or are off the chart based on our code of conduct, yeah, it used to be that we displayed, yeah, actually put screenshot there. It used to be that we displayed the username along with, well, we hide the content of the message itself, but we still display the username information, and this pull request here just hides basically everything, so that there is still there is still the fact that it shows up, the block itself shows up, but the rest is hidden. And here I should mention the pull request. So if anybody wants to help with Tatoeba, so one thing obviously is to try to contribute code, but even if you cannot contribute code, it's still super helpful if you can just, so if you can read code a little bit, it's still super useful if you can have a look at the changes that are being made, and if you have suggestions on how to improve or how to like have better code, basically, you can always suggest, just like what Yorba did over here. So he suggested that we change, we move the inappropriate class directly in the child itself, which definitely makes sense. So that's something I'll do later on. But yeah, so that's the current plan for the next Tatoeba updates. Okay. So let's close all of this. Yeah, so the next topic I want to talk about is the topic of mass imports. So give me a second. Okay, so mass imports. Lately, one of the Tatoeba members, actually, you would know him under LBDX, I think, or LDBX. I can't remember the order of the letters. Yeah. So basically, our member who is developing the Tato Miner application, which you would be aware of if you contribute to Tatoeba. You might have seen that we have a section here that links to this app that lists basically words. I mean, that provides a list of words where Tatoeba is lacking content. And so he actually mentioned to us an initiative from this organization, Translators Without Borders, where they have a data set. So the initiative, I'm actually not aware of this, but as far as I understand, the title says it clearly. It's about bringing language equality. And from there, they have apparently a data set where they used sentences, they extracted sentences from Tatoeba to have them translated into other, like, unpopular languages that are not very represented on the internet. And his suggestion was to actually import back those translations into Tatoeba so that it gives them a little bit more visibility, and also to encourage the Tatoeba community to translate the to translate these sentences into even more languages. So this brought up to my mind the topic of mass import, which is basically like how would we deal with importing a large set of sentences into Tatoeba. So this is a topic I already briefly mentioned in one of the previous streams, where I said, yeah, basically that's something that we used to have. So we used to have a feature within Tatoeba where you could upload a file and it would import all the sentences in the file. You could also upload like not just a list of sentences, but a list of sentences and their translations. So it could import also translations. But this feature is no longer available since more than 3 years now. Yeah, it's been a while. So this feature is no longer available for several years now, because we in 2019 we upgraded the framework. So the source code of Tatoeba is based on a framework called Cake PHP, and we upgraded. So we went through the upgrade of this framework from version I can't remember actually, version 2 to 3. Yeah, it's probably version 2 to 3, yes. And yeah, and during this upgrade, we had to basically rewrite the code, like really rewrite a big part of the code. And during the rewriting of the code, some features have just been left out. One of them was the mass import of sentences. So yeah, there used to be a page where the admins could go and upload a file, and this file, the sentences in the files would be imported in Tatoeba, but this page today is no longer available. And the thing with mass import is that I think I can say that not everyone was completely comfortable with the idea that it is possible to mass import sentences in Tatoeba, because we've been through several episodes where people have massively added sentences that were not really matching the quality standard of Tatoeba, and so that created that agitated a little bit the community. So many people were not very happy about that. So the general idea of mass import, let's say, it's nice to have, but we still have to think about how to handle cases when a lot of bad sentences are imported, and we also have to think of cases where too many sentences are imported at once. So yeah, if like 100 users want to import 1,000,000 sentences at once, that obviously would be a problem. So we have to think about these things, and yeah, we could think, okay, why not just add back the features that we used to have? But I think there were not a lot, but there were a few things from this feature back then that I don't think it's really worth to re-implement it the way it was and to keep the same process that we used to have. I think I would prefer to, if we are to allow mass import again, I would very much prefer that we try to think it in a more sustainable way. So I cannot show it anymore, but just to explain how it was done before. First of all, only people who had the admin status could import sentences. So only people with the admin status could access a special page, like probably something with imports, sentence imports probably. Like if you would type this, they would have a page with a form where they could mention a couple of information and to upload a file. And then from there, it would just, the file would be processed and then the sentences would be added. I don't think we put any limitations to how big the file was. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe there is anyway some limitations, even if we don't specify it. There is for sure. You can't upload. Probably you can't upload like 5 gigabytes of file in there. But yeah, so we didn't really set any sort of limitations of what could be imported, and the UI itself on the page was not very user-friendly, so it could have been easy to make mistakes. I think there has been a few cases where somebody tried to import and it didn't turn out well because problems with encodings. So there can be these kind of things if you mass import like 1,000 sentences and it turns out something's wrong with them. We don't really have a mechanism actually to revert that easily. It's just once they're imported, they're imported. Yeah, so there was these issues, but I think the main issue for me was that it was relying on admins. I would very much prefer if we have a process that doesn't involve just having admins deciding. I wouldn't like that admins are the bottleneck of this, and in some cases admins cannot really make the decisions themselves to decide to import or not. So yeah, you could say admins could be the intermediate, but yeah, the intermediate between the user who wants to import and like talking to the rest of the community to check if that's okay to import. But in general, back then, when we had this page, we didn't really have a process around what to import, what are the checks that should be done to import. I think the main thing was, okay, is this somebody that we kind of trust that is asking to import the sentences? And if yes, they would be imported. But right now, yeah, there could be situations where even if this is somebody who is somewhat trusted, we feel, okay, the content itself is maybe not the most appropriate to import. So how do we deal with rejection of such mass import requests? We don't really have that at the moment. But despite all these problems, obviously there are still many situations where importing sentences like in bulk would be very, very useful. And I think I had a comment in this thread where I posted a list of cases, because once every few months we hear about a case where, you know, it would be really nice if we could import this data set, or people asking us, is there a way to mass import sentences, because I have this file that I've compiled like my own sentences and I don't want to just manually copy paste them one by one through the UI. So yeah, there are many by now there are many cases where we can see that allowing people to mass import would be useful, but we don't have the feature at the moment. That is, however, one of the not top priority, but it's still something that is kind of high in my list of priorities, that one day we have something in place that would allow us to mass import. So if anybody listening to this is interested in the topic, just be aware. Yeah, that would be a very useful thing to have with Tatoeba. So now what you may have seen, I don't think it's happened lately, but what you may have seen if you've been long enough in Tatoeba is that some people still manage to mass import sentences. Because yeah, if you have the technical knowledge, you will be able to figure out a way to create scripts where you just read from a file and then it will mass import sentences. But you do need to have some knowledge in programming to do these kind of things. But even if there is no, let's say, native features for mass importing sentences, there are, in the end, there are still ways to mass import sentences. And obviously, and hopefully, people who do that, they are considerate into not using too many, like not spamming Tatoeba, not trying to to like send, I don't know, 10,000 sentences to be added at once, because that could bring down the server. But yeah, there are ways. Just even if these ways exist, you need the technical knowledge. But I think on our side, we still need to think of kind of I don't know what's the right word for it, fail-safe, or some mechanism that ensures that people don't abuse too much, like don't try to spam too much, and also to kind of stagger the flow of sentences imported at once, so that the rest of the community doesn't feel like, if all of the sudden there's like lots of sentences, and for some reason these lots of sentences are not the greatest quality, that there is a chance for the community to say, stop, don't add much more right now, before you go ahead with importing the rest. There are those basic issues that needs to be fixed, and then whoever wants to import the sentences would fix in their batch, they would fix whatever needs to be fixed before importing the rest, rather than just dumping 10,000 sentences and then having the community having to fix, I don't know, 5,000 of them, because there's a lack of punctuation or stuff like that. So yeah. So yeah, the topic of mass import. So if anyone has the knowledge of other datasets, any other dataset of sentences that we could import in Tatoeba, but that at the moment nobody will import because it has to be done manually, well, let us know. I will add it to the list, and as the list grows, I think it will put more and more pressure for us to actually finally find a solution for these things. But on my side, whatever we start with, I think the most, there's, for me, I already mentioned it. I don't know if I can find, there's a separate ticket for it. Right, okay, actually, yeah. I think for me, the first priority for mass import would be importing this corpus that has been now waiting for a few years to be imported, but I hope I can do something about it this year. We'll see. Right, so that's on the topic of mass import. So again, to summarize, mass import, we would love to, but we've had issues with it in terms of how to handle, how to manage if a lot of bad sentences are imported. But yeah, we would still love to be able to provide a way, because there are legit situations where somebody might be compiling a corpus offline, maybe because they don't have a good internet connection and Tatoeba is very slow to load, so they'd rather just create their sentences separately in a file, and then it's just it's just very painful to have like to go through Tatoeba and add copy paste the sentences one by one. Obviously, you'd rather just upload this file and then go take a coffee or call your friends, call your family, instead of spending 30 minutes trying to copy paste your sentences. So that's very much understandable. But right now we don't have the feature. And if we ever have the feature, I hope we can set up a workflow that is different from what we used to have. It shouldn't rely just on a small group of people being able to do the whole process. And the process should be easier to do, not like complicated with unfriendly user UI, unfriendly user interface. Okay, so that's one thing. And the second thing, so talking about mass importing sentences, there is, so the main problem that we faced, the obvious problems was about the quality of the sentences, but there is also another aspect that we should be careful about, which is more of the legal aspect, which is everything related to copyrights and licenses. So yeah, it could be that people start to import sentences that are completely fine, like linguistically even super interesting to have, but that come from a source that is not compatible with our legal framework. So I wanted to just take a little bit of time to explain that a little bit more. So first thing is, if you contribute to Tatoeba, probably you've gone through these sentences to add new sentences, and maybe you've seen in the sidebar this little message here that asks to avoid copy pasting sentences. And if you decide to copy paste sentences, at least make sure that they are not copyrighted and are compatible with the CC BY license. So this is maybe something that is not intuitive to grasp at first, but the reason why we have these restrictions is really because we have this page here that allows people to download our sentences, and not just that, but specifically because the data that we release over here in this page, we release it under a license that is called Creative Commons Attribution. So in short, it's called CC BY. And what this license means is basically anyone can take the content and do whatever they want with it, as long as they give attribution to Tatoeba. Right, so yeah. So for instance, I mean, typically, I guess one of the main reasons why people use Tatoeba is that they build some language learning apps out of it. So I don't know, a dictionary with example sentences, and the example sentences come from Tatoeba. But we also have people, we had a few people who are creating videos using Tatoeba sentences and who wrote to us asking, well, how should we attribute us? But yeah, so whatever content you can think of that you would create based on Tatoeba's data, you are free to really do whatever you want. If you make money out of what you create, that's okay for us. Like we don't ask any payment for in exchange of this data. So it's free to use. The only thing we ask in return is that there is attribution to Tatoeba, so that people who would use those newly created products can have can learn about Tatoeba. But yeah, so this is because of this license here that we use. We have to make sure, since we release all the sentences under this license, we have to make sure, of course, that the sentence that we release are indeed compatible with this license. And so the part that is not so intuitive for some people, I think, is that on the internet, you think that just because it is published on the internet, it means that you can just copy, you can just reuse it elsewhere, but that is actually not the case. Like, just because somebody publishes a blog post, for instance, it doesn't mean that you can read it for free, but it doesn't mean that they would be okay if you would just, I don't know, take their blog post and then just publish it, I don't know, and then just put it, I don't know, in some magazine, and then you sell the magazine. That would and you make money out of it. You can sense that it would probably not be completely okay to do that. So that's a bit of common sense. Now I just heard something ring. I think that was the chat. If I can find my window with the chat. All right, so somebody asked, I think it's yeah, LDBX is asking, what about mass addition of sentences to a list based on their IDs? Okay, so that was probably back to the mass import. So mass addition of sentences to a list based on their IDs. I'm not sure I understand really the question here. Probably it means to create, so to upload a list of IDs, and that would create a list out of it. Okay, I think I cannot type in this chat. Oh yeah. I'll ask for a bit of clarifications. Okay, but so yeah, back to the license issues. So yeah, most people are maybe not completely aware that copy pasting from the internet, just because it's free to access, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's free to reuse. And as soon as you add a sentence in Tatoeba, you have to consider that the sentence is actually reused. Reused and like released under a specific license that tells the rest of the world you can reuse our content in any way you wish. So yeah, that's the problematic part. I don't want to drag too long on just the legal concept of it. I think in general people can understand, yeah, that there can be issues adding any content. I think the most obvious is like if you imagine copying sentences from a book that is a bestseller. I don't know, you take a book like Harry Potter, you can see that it would be problematic if somebody copy paste all the sentences from the Harry Potter books into Tatoeba, but that doesn't just apply to books, that applies to actually any content. And the only way to make sure that when you copy paste, when you don't just create a sentence out of your own mind, if you try to copy paste sentences into Tatoeba because you found a source that was that contained really interesting sentences with very interesting vocabulary and stuff, if you do that, you have to make sure that whoever created this content is okay that their content is reused for all kinds of things, even for commercial purpose, and they will never be paid for it. So yeah, that's not something you can assume right off the bat. It has to be said explicitly. Now, in case we do have, I mean, because it will happen, of course, nobody will know, like nobody will be very literate in terms of licensing issues and will not really think, like there are some users who will just make an honest mistakes of copying a sentence that they really liked. I mean, I have some sentences myself back from more than 10 years ago when I was not very aware of the licenses issues. Like I have myself sentences where I've copied from somewhere else, and so in a small quantity they will not harm the project, to be honest. Like I don't think we need to be paranoid about it, but we still should be careful about this sentence, that it doesn't, like it should absolutely not be a habit. It should not be a trend that people just copy paste sentences into Tatoeba. We should still overall remain careful that the content is compatible with the CC BY license. And so what can we do on Tatoeba side when that happens? Well, in the past, the solution was to delete the sentence, but lately, or at least for a few years now, we have actually a mechanism, so I just wanted people to be aware of it. We have a mechanism to mark a sentence, like to change the license of the sentence. So if you visit the page, maybe I should view it as incognito, so that's, so typically if you visit the page of a sentence, you'll have this block here that mentions the license. And so in fact we have two available licenses in Tatoeba. We have CC BY, but we also have CC0, which is even less restrictive. So CC0 is you can do absolutely whatever you want with the content, and you don't even have to give attribution. CC BY is basically CC0, but you have to give attribution. So anyway, you have the license part, and we have the possibility as admins. So this is again one feature that is only available for admins. We have the possibility to set a sentence with a licensing issue. And so that's one way for us to deal. So instead of just completely deleting the sentence, and especially when we could consider, okay, maybe it's a little bit unclear if it's really like when we still need to think about it, whether it should be deleted for good or not, we can set the sentence as licensing issue. So in case you come across a sentence, I mean, this is, I'm talking about this topic because I was forwarded a message about somebody mentioning that there was copyright issues on some sentences, and I took care of them, so I figured I would explain how that works. So yeah, you can write to the admins, like well, you can also write to me directly. I think I'm the main person currently who takes care of these copyright issues, but you can also write to Tatoeba admins, where I will also receive the message. And yeah, and what I will do usually is, so we can go through a concrete example. So I know, for instance, that sometimes people will also add a tag. I haven't been through the list, to be honest, because there's not that many, and it's not too big of a deal. But basically what I will do is, so this sentence from Lord of the Rings, very obviously. So what I will do is I will search on Google the sentence. So this is a sentence that has, let's say, reached popular culture. So this is probably one of the cases where we have to ask ourselves, well, should we really delete it or not? But I think it's maybe a good case where we could set the sentence as licensing issue because we know where it comes from. So I actually don't know the details of when this sentence would be put into the public domain, but just for the sake of it, we can always switch it back, of course. What we can do is put this as licensing issue, and as you can see, once this is set with licensing issue, this won't be translatable anymore. And I will do the same for the translation. Okay, so this one was added here. Okay, anyway, so yeah, this is the current mechanism that we have in Tatoeba. Once it's marked as licensing issue, not translatable anymore, but unfortunately this is something we can only do sentence by sentence. So if we go back to the mass import topic, if somebody was importing 1,000 sentences like at once, and all of them have licensing issue, then it would be very annoying to deal with, as we would have to go one by one through each. Somebody who doesn't have access to the database would have to go one by one through each sentence. There is no button to say, okay, mark all these sentences with licensing issue. So yeah, that might be some of the things we have to care of when when we have mass import. So besides of just the quality, we might also have to care about issues with licenses. All right, so maybe we switch. I see that there's some reply to my question in the chat. Okay, so there is actually subs in the chat. So the person who added the sentence, let me just write to him. Okay. So I'll try to make a better setup for this with the chat, but I think for now we can just show it here. So we have the chat room over here, the Tatoeba chat room over here, and I think we can put the YouTube chat if I can find a way. Here we go. this one here and this one here. Perfect. So yeah, so now we can have a little bit more interaction. So back to the first question. So what about mass addition of sentences to a list based on their IDs? That is, add many sentences to a list at once. Sentences already on Tatoeba, create big Tatoeba list by uploading sentences ID. Okay, so this is about, yeah, this is, I guess, on a broader topic of doing things in bulk. So yeah, that's that would be also a very useful feature. That you would import. Yeah, you could put a whole list of text, and maybe like a lot of the sentences in the text file might. Yeah, you could have directly the sentence IDs, but you could also do it another approach, which is if we go back to thinking about the case of wait, what was the name? Guy. I don't want to mispronounce it. The name of the project, Gamayun. If we go back to this Gamayun initiative with the corpus, like the extracted sentences from Tatoeba, and if we wanted to figure out what exactly sentences from Tatoeba, and if we wanted to make a list of all the sentences that they extracted, we could imagine a system where still you could just send a list of sentences, and Tatoeba would automatically like detect the ID of the sentence and create. So if the sentence already exists, just add it to a list. And if the sentence doesn't exist yet, then create the sentence and add it to a list. So yeah, like massively import sentences, but also add them to the list along with it. That would definitely be a very useful thing. And I think, yeah, that would make a lot of sense to do. Right, and otherwise, so yeah, sobs. Okay, so sobs is not too ashamed that I had to mark his sentence as licensing issue. Okay. So I'll have to figure out how to set up chat messages in the future. Oh yeah, actually one last thing. If anybody watching right now wants to try out, let's try out. We're a bit in experimental setup here, but if people are too shy, I'll understand. You don't have to go along with this. But what we can try to do as well, if some people are interested to just have even more direct conversation, is to, so this one probably we don't need, but okay, we can allow. Is that in addition to have just a text chat, I should probably mute here, to also have a chat room, a voice chat. So yeah, if I if I hover over some of the other windows, it's going to make this part disappear. But yeah, yeah, maybe something to try next time. But I'll write it in here. To join. Okay, the URL doesn't show up perfectly here, and I cannot change the font size. But yeah, if you're watching anyway, you should see this in the in the YouTube chat. You can try to click the link if you just want to ask questions or just interact more live. Anyway, so somebody asked, have you seen my GitHub issue about sign language? So yes, I have seen it. Like I haven't had time to think further about it, but I'm aware that there is an issue about it. But okay, let's have a look again together at the issue. All right. So the story is sign languages are widely recognized as just as rich and complex as spoken languages. However, as far as I can tell, there is currently no method for submitting new or translated sentences in any sign languages on Tatoeba. While there are written forms of some sign languages, none seem to be supported on Tatoeba currently, and I don't think they would be sufficient to replace actual demonstrations of sign languages anyway. While I don't know any sign languages myself, I still think there should be a first-class way to submit sentences in sign languages, just as one can submit text and audio for spoken languages. So the idea, I think the best way to achieve this would be to add the ability to submit a video for a sentence. For sign languages, the user would be able to submit just a video or a video and text if a written text form is used. On the sentence page for a video sentence, the video embedded would be displayed first where the sentence normally goes. The written form, if included, would be displayed below. Translations would be displayed below that. From text sentences to avoid clutter, video translations would not be directly included in the translation list, but instead displayed as an icon or thumbnail. A user could then click on it to be linked to the main sentence page with the video embedded. Yeah. In terms of submissions, I would anticipate sign languages to be among the least popular languages on Tatoeba, so video submissions could probably be handled manually the same way audio submissions are now. Video files could then either be uploaded to some hosting services. For instance, Tatoeba's YouTube channel as unlisted videos, or hosted on Tatoeba's own server like audio is now. Alright. So, how to display? I think I lost half of the chat here. Did I close it by mistake? No. Oh no, it was here. Sorry. Okay, so yeah, no pressure, of course. Just curious about your thoughts. So my first thought about this one is actually, is there an ISO? Because if you think about our policies for adding languages, so let's go about how to request a new language. Step 1, identify your language in the ISO 6933 standard. And I'm wondering if, if we were to consider this as a language, is there actually an ISO code for it? I'm really not knowledgeable in this area here. is there a sign language for actually different languages? Like, would there be a sign language for like English, and would there be like a different sign language, like signs for I don't know, Spanish? Because the way with the way Tatoeba works at the moment is that each language has this ISO code associated to it. So that would be my first question. So okay, sign language don't have a one-to-one correspondence with spoken languages, but there are different sign languages. Yes. So, for example, British and American Sign Language are different. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, the first, I guess the first challenge is like, how do we modelize that into Tatoeba's dataset if we were to handle that? Something to think about, definitely. But I would say, yeah, we may. I'm just wondering if for sign language, if we may need to have kind of a completely different section. I'm not entirely sure. So they each have their own vocabulary and grammar distinct from the corresponding written language. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely an interesting question, though. I agree as well that if we are about languages, we do like the easiest is of course to handle text languages with text, but languages is by all means not limited to text. There's of course the sound, and there's of course visuals. Like all of that are part of languages, but how do we handle more than text at the moment? I mean, we still struggle with audio, so I think we have to solve that first. But dealing with sign languages would definitely be a very interesting thing to do. Okay, so anybody wants to try to join this room? So there is normally no password. If I'm not mistaken. So if anyone wants to try to join today, it's there. So it's already there. You just have to open the link and then click join, and then you would actually be able to join the room. But if not, I was thinking that in the next Tatoeba streams, I could still, I could suggest this. If somebody has a question, instead of writing in the chat, you could actually just join this Jitsi room, and then, well, you would need a microphone, of course, but you could technically ask your questions right away from there. The only thing I don't really know is if I have things set up so that the sound from Jitsi will also be outputted into the stream. But that might be something to try for another time, because we've been streaming for over 1 hour and a half now. Okay. Right, so if there are no more questions, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what is the latency between what I'm writing, what I'm speaking, and when the chat replies. But one more comment from Oride. I think supporting video would be a prerequisite, which would take significant work. After that, sign languages could be just normal languages that require video as part of the submission. Yeah. Like, yeah, where, like, how to handle the video parts. I mean, the suggestion of having the videos hosted on YouTube, in the YouTube channel, that might be a first step. Oh, okay. There is. Okay, they are. Yes, they are ISO. Okay, interesting. So I'll copy this just for the record so that we don't lose it. Can I format it in a nice way? Okay, I guess I'll think about that another time for formatting. Just for the record. Okay, so that's a good first step. So yeah, so if somebody wanted to request to add a British Sign Language, we will have to figure out indeed how to handle the video part. But in any case, so as long as the first step is completed, it has so at least these ones have an ISO code, so that's great. But yeah, the next part is obviously we can't store the content itself as we used to right now in form of text. We have to think about how to store videos. Well, as always, if anybody is interested in this topic, is interested in expanding the features of Tatoeba to really be inclusive of every languages in the world, that's a pretty interesting topic, I think. One that I personally, unfortunately, cannot start diving into as I have way too many things on my plate. But if you're interested in that, and if you'd like to find a way for Tatoeba to support sign languages, then you just have to reach out to me. So you can contact me as usual. Either you can send me an email, or you can write to me a private message on Tatoeba, or you can just come back to the next streams, or you can write in this chat somehow, because I guess now I'll be opening the chat at every stream, so I'll be seeing the latest messages. Yeah, there are many ways to contact me, but just somehow reach out to me, just express that you are very interested in figuring out a way for Tatoeba to support sign languages, and we can see what can be done from there. Like if anybody is willing to dedicate time on that, I'm happy to support. Okay, I think that's a good point now to end the stream. So thanks everyone for joining today. And yeah, there's going to be more streams. I'm trying to make them as regular as possible, so on a weekly basis. So very likely next Sunday there will be another stream. But until then, well, thanks again for joining. Take care, everyone, and see you.